G'day poker people, it's time to go over my second week visiting Tampa, Florida, trying to grind out some poker volume with the Florida man himself. Of course, the action of the Tampa Hard Rock didn't impress me quite as much as Commerce LA did. I was intrigued by a more competitive game as well as some ridiculously generous high hand promos. They were giving away $5,000 and we've got the hotel booked for 3 weeks anyway. I'm set up to grind. I was a bit of a disappointment of a degenerate gambler and I did not play on the Sunday evening, but Monday evening I was right back in the casino in some 2-5 for 1,000 where I played this first interesting hand. A tight aggressive button opens it up for 20 and then it folds to my big blind and I look down at ace king of clubs. Pretty good hand to start the session off with. Definitely going to be 3-betting this one up. I go ahead and make it 80 and then the button calls. So it heads up to a flop of Jack 8 for rainbow with no clubs. Pretty gigantic whiff for us. We still have plenty of showdown value with our ace king high, so I don't see any reason to really bet here, particularly out of position. Also the board's good for villain's range. I check it over to the button who checks back. Then the turn is the Jack of hearts pairing top pair. Just going to check this down, really just trying to get to showdown at this point. I check and then button checks as well. And the river is the 4 of clubs, still trying to get to showdown. I check it over to the button who goes ahead and bets 75. Now this bet was a little suspicious to me at the time. I thought if my opponent had something like pocket 5s through pocket 7s or maybe an 8, they probably would bet on the turn just to try and deny equity to my hands that are like ace king and ace queen. It is possible they're value betting those hands against my face up range at this point. Having said that, part of me did think they could have an ace queen or an ace jack that just doesn't want to check behind and lose to my ace king. So I did decide to throw in the call, hoping we're good here, and then opponent does show pocket 6s. So it was a good thin value bet by them. It takes me back to what I was going on about last vlog. I really have to be careful when I'm facing aggression from villains at the Tampa Hard Rock because I don't like to bluff, at least not a whole bunch. Next hand we see 2 limpers before a unknown cutoff goes ahead and raises it to 15. The action folds to my small blind with pocket 8s. Slam dunk 3-bet spot out of position in my opinion. I make it 60 and then the limpers fold and the cutoff calls. So it heads up to a flop of 4-3-3 rainbow. This is a great board for my hand. I have an overpair with pocket 8s somehow, but additionally, I think I can get some value out of ace X suited Broadway type hands, maybe king queen, 5s through 7s. Some chance I'm beat if they do have ace 3 suited or a better overpair, but that's a smaller part of their range than the stuff I can get value from. So I go ahead and bet 90 and then the cutoff calls. So it heads up to the turn still, which is the jack of clubs. Somewhat of a scare card. Like I said, I think my opponent could have ace jack. And even if they do have pocket 5s through pocket 7s, this could potentially be a scare card for them. So I go ahead and check it over to the villain who went ahead and bet 175. Now, it's kind of interesting here because I'm concerned about the jack, pocket 9s or pocket 10s as well. Maybe even pocket queens. Like I said in Tampa, people don't 4-bet you that often. There is a fair bit I lose to. Having said that though, if I give my opponent credit for all the ace jack combinations, I've got to give him credit for like the ace queen combinations, the ace 10 combinations as well. So my logic would be a bit inconsistent if I gave them the jacks and didn't give them those other hands and folded right away to 1-bet. So I did throw in the call. And then we're at the river, which is the 2 of clubs. Again, pretty bad river. I didn't mention it earlier, but 5-6 was a straight draw and that got in now on the river. So yeah, we do lose to a lot here. So going to proceed with a lot of caution, starting off with the check, of course. And then the villain does check back, which we think is good news. I show my hand, but then the villain does show pocket 10s. I don't want to be too results tilted, but I was a bit annoyed that I paid off turn bet there. So GG to the villain. I look over to the guy next to me and he's watching a Ben Shapiro video on his phone with his headphones in. So I know this guy is an intellectual mastermind and I should definitely try and avoid him in pots. This next hand is against him. We got the straddle on in this hand, but it's a button straddle, which is the first one we've covered in the vlog so far. Basically, the button straddles to 10 and then the action starts on the small blind and everything from there proceeds like a normal poker hand. The button straddles and then a tight passive big blind goes ahead and limps. Then I'm in the low jack with king jack of hearts. I go ahead and raise it up to 50. Then the Ben Shapiro fan calls in the cutoff and the big blind folds. So we are heads up to a flop, which is king jack 4 all diamonds. So hey, we flop 2 pair. That's pretty grouse. Though it is a monotone board, so we do lose to the plethora, the flushes in villain's range. So we can't go too crazy here, but I think starting off with a C-bet does make a lot of sense. I go ahead and bet 40. And then what do you know? The cutoff raises it to 200. Very concerned by this. They have a bunch of flushes in their range. Probably all of the ace-x suited combinations except for ace-king, maybe ace-queen, although people don't 3-bet in Tampa, so they can maybe have ace-queen suited, as well as suited connectors. There's just a lot of flushes they have in their range. So I've got to proceed with a lot of caution here. I think folding right now too tight. We're at least going to see one more card, which gives us the potential to make a full house and outdraw them. And if my read's wrong and they don't have a flush, then folding 2-pair would just be crazy. So I do throw in the call, although I'm very concerned here. And then we see a turn, which is the queen of clubs. I go ahead and check it over to the villain, who checks back, which was actually great news to me. I really didn't expect them to be checking if they had a flush, so maybe my 2-pair's good here. And then the river is the 10 of hearts. Awful river. Now we lose to any ace-x combination. If the villain did semi-bluff on the flop with ace of diamonds, 3 of spades, they now got there. So I'm really checking here and just hoping to go to showdown and somehow win this hand. But then the cutoff goes ahead and rips it all in for 550, and this is just the easiest fold in the world, so gonna lose this one. So that wrapped up the Monday evening session. Went home, got some sleep, and by the time I woke up, which was like Tuesday in the afternoon, I went straight back to the casino to buy into some 2-5, where I played this next hand. I'm in the hijack with king 8 of hearts. I decided to open it up for 15. This is too loose of an open. I would not recommend. Regardless, folding is boring. I decide to play this hand, and then I get punishment for my bad opens because the button goes ahead and 3-bets it to 35. So the action folds back to me here, and look, this is one of the worst hands I'm going to be opening here, even when I am tilted and bored. Having said that though, we are getting a really good price to call this bet and play the pot. Being out of position though, I still think folding probably is better. I get baited by the cheap price though. I do decide to call. So we are heads up to a flop, and my absolute fishery gets rewarded here because the flop is king 8 for rainbow. Let's go. We do flop 2-pair against what I suspect is a pretty strong range, knowing how Tampa 3-bets work. So I check it over to the villain, and they go ahead and bet 60 into 70. Definitely think they have a strong hand now. This board is great for their range. They can have ace king, king queen maybe, although I don't know if everyone in Tampa 3-bets that, but aces as well, of course. So definitely should be check raising here. I decided to call. Not sure why I'm being so passive here. I think this is a mistake. So we have just fucked up this hand on every level so far. Let's see if we can improve by the turn. It's the jack of clubs. I check it over to the villain in flow again. They go ahead and bet 100, and now I finally catch up to where I should have been on the flop. I mix in the check raise. I go ahead and make it 300, and then villain throws in the call. So we're loving this news. The chance they have ace king or aces is very high now, and I don't think they'll fold that hand, especially when the river is the 7 of hearts. I go ahead and put them all in for 505, and villain snap calls. A little bit concerned with the snap call. They could have pocket kings, maybe pocket jacks, but when I show my hand, theirs goes straight in the muck, and we end up scooping this entire pot. Let's go. So that wrapped up the Tuesday afternoon session, and despite some really good results, I wasn't quite that happy with my play. I think I made a fair bit of mistakes on the Monday session as well, to be honest. And this was actually 2 days before Christmas in the Leibets timeline, and honestly, being away from home during this time of year did start to weigh on me a lot. Not as much as I thought it would, but this was my first time out of Australia, away from family during Christmas, and I think subconsciously it did tilt me a bit, and I was feeling pretty lonely in a foreign land at the time. And I think that's not to make excuses for the bad play, though it does explain the tilt levels to some extent. I really wanted to push through and grind out a bunch of volume. Not only do I think, I'm here to do that, so I should be doing it anyway, but maybe that'd be a good distraction from being away from home. So that's what I did. I was back in again on Wednesday, which was where I played this first hand. I actually sat in some 1-2 whilst I was waiting for a 2-5 seat. We see 2 limpers that I'm in the cutoff with ace king offsuit. I go ahead and raise it up to 20, and then both the limpers call. So we're 3 ways to a flop of queen jack 10 with 2 spades. Above average flop in my humble opinion. Both the villains check it over to me. I've got the nuts here in a multi-way pot. Why complicate things? I'm gonna go ahead and bomb it. I go ahead and bet 50, and then I get some good news because the low jack rips it all in, and then the hijack calls all in for less. So absolute dream spot. My chips are going in the middle. No need to slow roll anyone. I throw in the money. I end up showing my hand straight away when the board runs out with a 4 of clubs, then a 7 of clubs, and then the hijack shows queen 10 of clubs. Low jack ends up mucking their hand, and I end up scooping both villains in this pot, running hot to start off in some 1-2. But then literally, as I'm raking in my chips from winning this hand, I hear over the loudspeaker, "Lee, your 2-5 seat is ready." And I felt really, really bad to hit and run on these guys after I stacked 2 of them and potentially even break the game. But guys, I'm here to grind. Like, I'm going to go play my 2-5 game. So I end up racking my chips, leaving to go play 2-5. Felt pretty bad to hit and run on these guys. I'm not even going to apologize or anything because I'm happy to run this good and stack 2 people at 1-2. Anyway, speaking of hitting and running, when I did get into my 2-5 game, I was playing for a few hours and then one random guy ended up doubling up through someone else at the table. And then literally as soon as he doubles up, he pulls the rack out from under the table and starts putting all the chips in it. And he starts going on about, "I drove all the way here from Orlando. I can't be losing this money, man." Literally, once all his chips were in the rack, he stood up from the table and then he waited, like hovering around the table for like 5 to 10 minutes, waiting for the waitress to bring him his beer that he ordered. It's a pretty funny situation. I can detach from it because it didn't happen to me, but I do imagine if I was the one that he doubled up through, I would be a bit shitty that he just like stayed around the table and didn't play any more hands. I mean, it is what it is. You do see a lot of hitting and running in Tampa specifically. Sure, it happened in Melbourne sometimes. I didn't really play in California that long, so I don't think I saw it happen much there. But it's just odd, like Tampa Hard Rock specifically, people do like to hit and run. I don't think it really should alter the way you play the game at all, except for maybe you should be a bit more hesitant about doubling some certain people up because it might end up breaking the game would be the only strategic adjustment you can make to it. It's just an interesting thing about Tampa. There are a lot more hit and runners. I'm not really sure why. Maybe just more socially acceptable here because people are more laid back or whatever, but it'd be interesting to hear some of your opinions on hitting and running. If you like it, if you hate it, if you get annoyed when people do it, let me know in the comments. Maybe I should have stuck to the 1-2 because I only lost money at a 2-5 table before I ended up racking up for the evening, getting some sleep before coming back for a Christmas Eve grind, my first ever Christmas Eve grind, if I remember correctly. So hopping to the 2-5 game for 1,000, and straight away I noticed everyone at the table is really loud, laughing, drinking a lot, having a good time, which is what you love to see when you go on to play 2-5. Everyone at the table was ordering beers and whiskey, and I'm sitting there drinking green tea. I was a little bit worried that my drink order would make me look like a massive nit, but I don't really think it affected my game at all when I got pocket 8s all in against 5-4 suited. I don't think people were in the mood to fold. I did end up losing that hand on the run out, but it's a good spot regardless, and I really can't complain when I got my ace king all in against ace jack on an ace high board and ended up doubling up through the same villain. I really can't complain. Ended up having a great Christmas Eve at the casino. It was when I went home and then I woke up the next day on Christmas Day when things started to really hit emotionally. It was my first time spending Christmas away from family. And I didn't really think it would affect me that much when I booked the trip initially, but it really did hit on this day. Escaping the lockdown and being able to play live poker whenever I wanted was pretty much all I could think about during the entirety of the 2 years lockdown in Melbourne. But now that I finally had that opportunity, I actually really wasn't happy. On this day in particular, I missed my friends, I missed my family, I missed hearing people's voices who sounded the same as mine, as dumb as that might be. I missed my mum, I just missed home, man. In a lot of ways, this single Christmas day was just as bad as any of the days were during the lockdown. And it really felt bad in the moment, but I'm glad it happened because it helped put things into perspective and see what was really actually important to me deep down. Look, I love poker. I'm always going to play poker. I'm never going to stop, but I can't just be focused on the card game 24/7 every day for the rest of my life and expect to live a fulfilled life outside of it. So what did I need to do to make that happen, I hear you ask? Well, I hate to slow roll you guys, but I can't fit it all into this video. It's a very, very broad topic and I've got a lot of things to say on it going forward. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to follow this journey when my next video comes out. I do appreciate you watching all the way to the end of the vlog. It really helps the channel. If you do like the t-shirt I'm working with the Anti-Gambling Gambling Club, we have t-shirts, hoodies, hats on my website at leebets.com. So if you want to join the Anti-Gambling Gambling Club, make sure you go to leebets.com and pick up some merch for yourself and help out the channel. But for now, I'm out of here. Peace.